Okay.
Hello and welcome to the ISRK podcast. I'm your host, Kumar Vikrant. I'm a doctoral candidate at the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, Hanyang University, Seoul, Korea. ISRK, that is Indian Students and Researchers in Korea, is a voluntary support group that works towards the benefit of the Indian diaspora in Korea. So on today's episode, I have the pleasure to be in conversation with Professor Mohit Kumar, who is an assistant professor at Ajou University, Korea. Professor Mohit is actively involved in research areas interfacing neuromorphic electronics, transparent optoelectronics, and photovoltaic cells, and many more nanostructured materials, etc. So, Professor Mohit, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Vikrant. It's my pleasure to be here on your platform. Actually, I'm really happy to explain myself or about my ideas, about my future plans and all these things. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining. And yeah, to begin the conversation, I'm very much intrigued to know why did you decide to come to South Korea for your advanced research work, like postdoctoral research and eventually a professorship? Like, what was the journey behind it, if you can elaborate in brief? Because usually back home in India, when I talk to people, when people think about higher education or international research, naturally they think about going to the US or Europe, etc. So can you briefly flesh that out?
Okay. So actually, basically your question is why I came to Korea, actually. So there are several points.
Yes.
So maybe I will explain one or two or maybe three.
Sure.
So the main point is that in Korea, the research funding is very good.
Yes.
I would say excellent, particularly in the applied science, not in basic science, but in applied science. By applied science, I means the science which can be directly used for the practical applications.
Yes.
So if you'll say in Korea, it's a hub actually. Yeah. So in I'm interested to design the advanced electronics and optoelectronic devices.
Right.
And for Korea, I thought that this is the hub actually. So that's why I came here in Korea.
Right.
And the second point you can see here in Korea mainly that if you'll see academia and industry.
Yes.
They are well correlated actually. Their tie-up is so strong. You will not find anywhere in the world excluding the Korea, Yeah. So if you do some research and you will say, okay, this is my research. Even if you not go to company, they can find the research from your paper and they will come to you. It happens two times,
Did it happen to you?
Company, yeah. So company, they found our interesting and they came to us actually. And they said, okay, we want to see the demonstration of the device. If it is working really, we will give the fund.
Sure.
So it's a pleasure, so if you are doing something and you are getting the fund for that one.
Yeah, I think for a researcher, so just people like us, that is the most at the pinnacle of things that can happen. Like
absolutely. And the funding is the backbone for research,
Right.
So that's why I came to Korea. And the second point is that, the safety wise, this country is so good.
Yes.
Particularly when you are staying with your family and you have a daughter also. So you will feel more secure in this country. And that's why I thought that let's go to Korea. This is the best country for the advanced research.
Nice. So you touched upon a really interesting point regarding safety, which I think many people outside Korea might not be knowing. Actually, Korea is extremely safe. And many times, like people in my lab, he actually dropped his credit card on the road. And when he just traced his steps back the next day, and it was just lying beside a tree. So someone had picked it up and put it beside the tree. So
we went to the Nami Island, and one of my friends, he lost his wallet,
Yes.
And he was moving freely. He knows that clearly that when he will come to the counter, he will get it.
That's right.
So this and my wife or my daughter, they can walk in the night anytime. And you don't need to worry about the call, make the call, where are you going, when you will come back. There's no need to worry about all these things. The safety-wise, this country is really good, actually.
Yeah, I can presume, like being a parent, that must be a very important responsibility to ensure the safety of your kids. And
sure.
Yeah, it's really great to hear that Korea is offering that kind of security to family. Right. And talking about family, I wanted to know, like several people who are doing research in Korea, several of them come with their families or eventually think of developing a life in Korea. So how is the family life in particularly in Korea? Like, in which city you are based right now?
Oh, I'm in Suwon,
Suwon. Okay. Suwon, right?
Yeah, I'm in Suwon, and here the life is really good, actually. So there are many companies here, like Samsung is here, basically.
I think headquarters is in Suwon, right?
Yeah. So there are many Indians nearby, and so they like So you can talk to them, you can discuss them, you can make a small group which we can get together and all these things. And for the kids, if I will say, like my son, he is in elementary second grade. So in Korea, if you'll see the education system, there are three kinds of schools actually. Most of people knows the two type of school. One is the Korean and one is the English medium,
Yeah, in the international
school. Is very expensive. Most of the people ask the question, it's really expensive. But there are third kind of Korean schools as well, So it's like multicultural elementary Korean schools, So if you
do the local Korean kids as well as international kids study together?
Absolutely. So most of the international students are there, and benefit for that school is that, if you send your kids to that school, after school, they will provide the Korean teaching for 2 hours to the international students.
Wow.
So like my son and other like 20 or 21 students, Korean, like Vietnamese, Chinese, and they teach the Korean extra 2 hours. So this is very good.
So are they able to?
Every city they have this kind of schools actually.
So are they able to converse in Korean now?
Yeah, my son is very good.
Nice, very nice.
If I will say, let's go to India, I say, no, I don't like India.
Oh, wow.
He was going to, in India, he was going to school, and near my home place, there is teachers, they are really strict. So if you see this teacher in Korea and teacher in India, he say, no, they are not good.
Right.
Only that's why.
Yeah, so I also wanted to know, like, what is the scenario for getting citizenship in Korea? For example, are your kids eligible to get the citizenship?
I'm not sure actually. Frankly speaking, I never searched this kind of thing.
Sure.
But I'm not sure actually what my kids will do in future.
Right.
So I really don't know actually.
Anyway,
they want to move from the Korea after their high school.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
What is their long-term plan actually?
Right. I was intrigued a bit, so that's why I asked. Anyway, and you have also worked in Israel, right? And so Israel, along like Korea is on the second and Israel is on the first on the amount of money the government spends on the R&D facilities, right?
Sure.
How was your experience in Israel? And you have also extensive experience of working back home in India. So can you contrast between India, Israel, and Korea? I know like it can be too broad a question, but can you generalize a bit, like what has your experience been like?
As you said, it's difficult to generalize the scenario. But I can explain my personal experience.
Yes.
So my personal experience is that I did my PhD from India, Institute of Physics, Bhubaneswar. So my personal experience is that in India, education system is really good. Teachers, they are also good.
Right.
But somehow our education system is confined within the boundary of the education institute.
Right.
So if you will say, how do you know about the device fabrication, or it's how it's working? How it is working, we are excellent. But if you'll say, let's prepare the device, okay, we don't have that kind of capacity.
Right.
Even if we can fabricate the device in the lab, but for the practical application of that device to the industry, it's not there actually. So India, somehow we are lacking in that scenario.
In that aspect.
Here in Korea, it's other way around. If you do something, industry, they are ready to catch up. They will pick up immediately.
Yes,
in India, it's not like that actually.
Right.
So this is the big difference actually. What I realized that in India research and the higher research in Korea. Now let's come to the Israel. Actually, I love that country too much also. Okay, because
I'm very much excited to hearing about Israel, because usually I do not get the opportunity to talk with people who have been in Israel.
Sure. So in Israel, they are very strong in fundamental science and the technology also.
Both.
But there is no mixing. Here in Korea, you will find the mixing. Mixing, I mean, if you go to physics department, it's very difficult in Korea, particularly. If you go to physics department and you will find some professor, it's really difficult to differentiate whether it's a scientist or he's an engineer or he's a physicist. They are doing all things together. But if you go to Korea, Israel, if they are physics, they are doing hardcore physics.
Yeah.
So let's say I know that many professors in Israel, they are full professors. They are going to retire, but they have like 12 or 15 papers only. So in chemistry, I know that I was in Weizmann Institute of Science. In chemistry, there was a professor, he has maybe only 8 papers. But if you see what he did in that 8 papers, it's really breakthrough. But in Korea, it's like they are doing device work. Basically, they are doing the applied science.
Right.
Okay. For the fundamental science point of view, Israel is really, really good. And for the students like you, actually, I have a very good point here. Israel provide, like, in Korea, we have like brain pool fellowship, or the previously it was KRF fellowship, like for the postdoc.
Right.
In Israel, you can get the PBC fellowship, planning budget fellowship. And that is very similar to the KRF. You need to find the host. And that fellowship is only for the Indians and Chinese students, not for worldwide. Okay?
Nice.
KRF, anyone can apply, but that fellowship is only for the Indian and Chinese students. And it's like in KRF, you will get the housing rent and many other benefits also. Same in the PBC fellowship. Okay, so if you apply, there is a high probability that you will get it.
Right.
Depending on your host, definitely you need to find some host like in KRF, right? Yes. So if you want to go to Israel for your higher research, you can go easily through that fellowship. So it's really interesting, actually.
And yeah, sure. You were saying.
Yeah, this is my personal view about the research scenario in India, Korea, and Israel, right?
Yeah,
I'm very small to explain some country research,
Anyway, thank you very much for sharing your experience. That's what I want through this podcast, actually, learning about people's experiences, so that we can on a whole understand with a greater perspective. Anyway, so while you were in Israel, I can understand this can be a bit of sensitive question given the political situation there. Like, how safe did you feel there?
Oh, it's too much safe.
I see.
Okay, so if you are outside the Israel, you will feel unsafe, like in Korea. Okay,
sure.
People are outside, people, they're afraid. Okay, sometimes they say you may be not safe there in that country.
Right.
Same in Israel. But if you go inside Israel, you are extremely safe in that country. Okay? There is no need to worry about nothing, actually. So safety point of view, Israel is extremely safe country.
I see. Good to know.
I love that country, actually.
How was the food there?
Oh, you can find easily. Indian food is available everywhere, we are everywhere in the world. Okay. But the food is very good also. And if you are vegetarian, you can enjoy there.
Sure. Okay. So, and I'm actually very much intrigued by your research area, neuromorphic, that's like brain-like electronics, and optoelectronics, particularly photovoltaic cells, etc. So can you briefly explain about what you do and what your research focuses on, and how can this research area impact the society on large?
Okay. This is an interesting point, actually, and I'm happy to explain my research.
Yeah, I'm very much interested in your area.
Sure. So as you mentioned, that if you'll see the neuromorphic, so neuromorphic means the brain-like electronics. So why the brain-like electronics? You should ask, because if you'll see your mobile phone in your hand, it's working well. Okay, whatever you want to do, it can do. You can make a video call, you can do. So why we need the neuromorphic electronics? Why need the brain-like electronics? Because whatever electronics you are using, it's digital, 1 Newman, 0101 bit. Why we need that electronics? So the main answer, actually, I can explain in the layman language, is that if I will ask what is the 2 plus 2 to you, you will say, okay, 4. Okay. Same question if you'll put in your calculator. This calculator may be in your computer or maybe in your mobile. You will 2 plus 2, it will give the 4. But if you ask the same question to some person, okay, that depends on the history of that person, the interaction of the history of with you, actually. So let's say if you ask this question to me, what is the 2 plus 2?
Okay.
I will see your face and recognize whether you are my friend or you are my enemy.
Okay.
Because if you are my friend, I will say 4. But if I want to harm you, I can say 3, 5, 6, 3 number.
I see. Like if you feel that something is off, then you may. Okay.
So actually, my answer depends on the history between you and me.
Okay. Interesting.
But electronics, all the time, if you whatever calculator you use in under random phone or random computer, it will give you 2 plus 2, 4.
Yes.
But for us, actually, it depends what was our previous interaction. It depends on the history, or it's something. I can I give you any random example.
I understand your point.
That electronics cannot do. Okay. And because we can take the decision, we can do many things. We can remember things. We can do many things which percent computer cannot do. Particularly when it will come to the recognition of something. Okay. So if I will show your face to the computer and I will ask who is this guy, he has to do the facial recognition. Okay. And that's not easy process, Sometimes it can take 2 days or 3 days. But if you'll see me somewhere else also, we are interacting now on the computer. But if you'll see me in person, somewhere, you are Mohit, actually. So that's why we can do. Our brain can do. So our research was like that. If somehow we can design the electronics very similar to human brain that can take the decision. We can do the wonder in science and technology.
Sure. So is it like AI related research or?
Absolutely. It's a hardware-based artificial intelligence. Not
I
the
understand.
software. It's very simple. So every device, like you have a touch sensor in your phone, okay? But that touch sensor is passive. You touch it and remove your finger, that data is gone.
Right.
But whatever touch sensor we are designing, when you touch it, remember, this person touched me at this place previously.
And recognizes it. And
absolutely. When you touch again, it recognizes you. Okay, you are touching me already. Okay. So let's say if you want to harm your mobile phone, let's say you have some sharp object and you want to hit your phone is passive, it will not react. But our device will react. It when you
because it's touch, neuromorphic.
Absolutely, it will react. It say, okay, if you harm me, touch me like this, I will not work.
Yes.
It's like that. So this very is kind of research. It's very interesting nowadays, actually. So that's why actually my PhD is, it's a photovoltaic solar cell.
Yeah.
So I thought that's when I started this research, I thought that's like how we can use the, let's say optoelectronics or simple electronics to design the artificial intelligence.
How did you get into this neuromorphic research area?
After when I came to Korea, actually, once I was reading the paper, when I was reading the paper, I thought it's very interesting paper. So with that, we use the electronics and optoelectronics and implement into the neuromorphic device. When we started, maybe very few people was doing like that, but now it's very interesting topic nowadays, actually.
So how do you create this brain-like structure using semiconductors and
the same semiconductor, actually, so we have a diodes, we have a transistors, we have all these things.
So logic circuits,
working principle in diode, it's like IV characteristics, it should be very fast. But the working principle, the fundamental working principle of the neuromorphic device is little bit different. The difference is that it should have some historical memory. Memory which decay with history, with time.
So do you encode it into the device or do you train it with time? Like with
brain with time, actually. So when you put the information, we measure with the time how it's responding. So it's very fast. If it go high, very high, it's not neuromorphic. It should show some slow response.
Nice. Okay? Yes.
So bad is bad, but good is good, right?
Right. So to get into this research area, what are the prerequisite courses or subject areas that a student should?
Okay. Previously, this field is very new, actually.
Yeah, I understand.
So. So if you go to syllabus or you want to teach that to the student, it's very difficult to find. But you can design your syllabus, actually. So next semester, I'm going to teach a new course, actually, that is the foundation of the neuromorphic computing based on electronics, actually.
So is it covered under like electronics engineering or electrical or computer science?
No, actually, so it's like anyone can join it. It's like open courses for the industry.
So it's like the modern research is collaboration between different areas.
Absolutely. So it's open for all, actually.
Yeah, anyways, Professor, actually, in the previous episode, I had the opportunity to talk with Venki, Professor Sammy. So he works in San Diego State University in California, and he's in interstellar chemistry and computational chemistry. Like he studies the interstellar molecules in the space and uses theoretical chemistry to understand how the processes go on. Anyway, so he raised a very important point, which I found quite very important. Like he talked about the gap between research and education, and he said that many times what happens is some research concepts are already in practice, but the transition to the actual courses in the university is very far off. So what is your take on that? Like how can we bridge that gap?
No, so that's actually, so this is very, very important question in that scenario, that universities, if you have their syllabus, if you go to the India, you will find the syllabus and hardly they are making any change with the time.
Yes.
But if you are making the changes, like in my when I joined, actually, so the department told me that I have to teach also.
Yes.
So so when you are teaching, I told, okay, I can teach the like solid state, optoelectronics or something. They told me, no. You have to design your syllabus. So I get the opportunity to design the syllabus. A syllabus which is very new, which is fundamentally students should know. So if I will say, okay, neuromorphic device is working like that. Your second question was how I can design the neuromorphic device.
Right.
Everyone wants to know how I can design the neuromorphic device, because if you don't read the transistor, if you don't read the diodes, you cannot design them. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you will read that one, then that's a problem, actually. If you design the new kind of courses, a new kind of every semester you can put some one or new
Sure.
two
Mm-hmm.
so that the student can get the benefit of the research. Actually, this is my point. Actually, he can fill up that gap like that. Actually,
I also think that like giving more flexibility to professors like you, like who can introduce certain concepts into the, because of course the basic knowledge or the fundamental knowledge is important, because like you said, without that you cannot proceed ahead. But with that, if we introduce some application based research that is going on, then I think students will get more interested in science as well, like doing research and others. Anyway, so thank you very much for sharing. And so how does one get professorship in Korea? Because back home in India, it's a very competitive process, people applying to private and government universities and all that. So what is the process like in South Korea? And what changes did you notice in yourself when you transitioned from postdoctoral researcher to professor? I'm very much interested in knowing your experience.
Sure. This is also a very interesting question, actually. So let me explain a little bit about my position first. So previously, like post-doc or the UNIST or the DGIST, this kind of institute or like SKKU, they have like assistant professors for the foreigners.
Okay.
But in Korea, if you want to maintain your ranking or your reputation, you have to hire the foreigner professors for the full-time professors.
Oh, really? Oh, I did not know that.
This kind of So previously, like here in Korea, there are like postdoc and research professors. Like now they open the vacancies for the assistant professors. So it's opened by the university website.
So it's like a permanent position, or generally it's a contract.
Absolutely. And the point is that, so it's the process is very similar to India. They will call for the application,
right?
And when the application will, let's say 3 or 4 applications will come, or many applications will come. They will shortlist it and they will call to you to the university for the presentation. So after presentation, they will shortlist 2 or 3 candidates, and then the president will make external panel with the internal professors as well, and you have to give the final interview. So it's like 3-step process, actually.
It's quite an elaborate process, like everywhere.
It's same in India also. Same is in India also.
Yes.
So once you qualified, you will get the position, actually. All these things you have to clear, actually. And the transition from the postdoc to this is the main point, actually. So what I realized, actually, in the postdoc, so when you are working with the professor directly, so maybe professor has some project.
Okay.
It may be from the government or funding, or
because they may already be working on some
absolutely. Or he may have his own ideas.
Yeah.
So he will say to you that, okay, work on this project. Or if you will come to the brain pool, also you have your own project. Okay. So you have to work. You are confined with some research bubble, you can say.
Yeah.
But after getting the position, you are free. You can generate more ideas. You want to work on this idea. Recently we started the flexoelectric effect. It's a new kind of effect. We started just now, actually. When I joined, I thought that's okay. Let's start something new also. Flexoelectric effect is like that. The silicon, you have fundamental band gap of 1.1 electron volt around. So if you put you strain, inhomogeneous strain, you can modulate the fundamental property.
You can change the band gap.
Band gap can be 0.5 electron volt. For IR range, because of the flexoelectric effect. So that's, I feel, actually.
So if you go into that range, then you can utilize a very broad spectrum of light.
Absolutely. So after joining, you have freedom to choose your research, to put your ideas into for the device fabrication. It's really good. And another point is that, if you get the teaching, particularly, you will enjoy, actually.
Right.
So this is another main point.
Yeah, that's also what I've heard, like through this podcast. I've been talking to many professors and research associates as well. And so they have been telling me, like, in their own life, like one of the most meaningful things they do is to teach the younger generations, mentorship. So I understand, like, it may be a very meaningful experience. Like I haven't had that experience so far quite extensively, but I can understand that. Yes. Anyway, so you touched upon an interesting point there. Like, how do professors apply for funding in Korea? Like for example, how do you secure funding in Korea?
Okay. So it's same, actually. Whatever Korean funding is available for the Koreans, you can also apply.
Sure.
For the National Research Fellowship, also NRF, or you can go to the company like Samsung, LG, Hyundai.
Yeah.
There also.
So how do the private versus public funding differ? Like, are private fundings more result oriented, or the government funding is more flexible to allow you to pursue
Government
whatever?
funding, I feel it's more flexible actually.
Yeah.
Because your company will come to you only when you have something meaningful.
Sure. Yeah.
But in the government funding, you can do the fundamental research as well. If sometime your research is not useful instantly, it may be useful in future.
Sure.
But with the company funding, if you do that kind of funding research, they will say, okay, it's not good.
Yeah.
Because they want the result instantly.
Yeah, that's what I've observed as well. Yeah.
If you do government funding, you can do more flexible work actually.
Right. Because many times what I have observed as well is like the private funding is more very much direction oriented. Like
absolutely.
They have a particular vision and they want you to proceed on that and make practical. Yeah. And that kind of research can be very fruitful because you will be producing direct application in the real world. But on the other hand, pursuing fundamental research is extremely important as well, like you said, developing new concepts.
Sure. So if you have both kind of funding, it's very good for you.
Yeah, that's the ideal situation.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I'm very much enjoying conversation with you, Professor.
Same for me.
Yes. Also, so I wanted to ask you, like on a personal note, when you came to Korea, what kind of cultural shock did you encounter, if any? And do you see like if there is the language barrier, like because the Korean is the primary mode of communication in this country? So did you experience any of that stuff while after coming to Korea, or?
Okay. So frankly speaking, actually, language is a barrier here.
Yeah.
You cannot deny it actually, and this barrier is not only for you actually. It's for Korean also.
Yeah, sure. It works both ways.
If you want to communicate, they will come to you, and they also want to communicate. So if you feel that okay, what I am not getting, they also feel the same actually sometimes. But the good thing is that the Korean, they are very helpful.
Yeah.
Even if they don't know English, they will try to help you actually.
Yes.
They will translate it. They will immediately take out your phone and they will Google Translate or some translator they will use, and they will translate. They will tell you the directions and all these things. So you will find here in Korea that people are really helpful.
Yeah.
So that somehow is good here. But barrier is language barrier is there. I don't know the Korean, so I don't know that much. But language is, it should be all everywhere actually. If you go to Europe, also you'll find the same actually.
Sure.
So if you say language is a barrier, I think it's a barrier here.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I've also experienced, and talking with people, other people have also stated this. What happens is, like, if you are in an international setting, for example, we work in research labs, and generally we like everything is international, like our publications are international, courses are in English. So in that atmosphere, it is manageable. But
everything is okay. But once you go
everything
outside the academy, you will feel that.
Once you go into the society, like if you want to interact with locals and experience the local culture, then there is some barrier.
Everything is okay then.
I understand that. Yes.
Anyway,
so I also wanted to know, like, so your kids are in Korea, like you explained.
Yes. I'm staying with my family.
Right. So how does the school system like you have touched upon that briefly in our conversation, like I wanted to know, like how does the, like, for example, after elementary school, is the system just like in India, like middle school, high school, and then colleges, and how does that work here?
Oh, it's same in India also. So there is no change actually. First you have to go to elementary, then middle school, and then the high school. Here high school is like in India we have like inter actually 12th.
Yes. Yeah.
High school is like 12th actually. So it's like that, and after high school you have to go for the university. You have to give the exam and all these things. So education system is more or less same as in India, but the issue is that you have to read everything in Korean actually.
So if the parents want the kids to have like English exposure, then you have to pursue international schooling.
And that is very expensive. It's really expensive actually here in Korea. But if you're like my son, he's enjoying here actually. He has a Korean friends. He can communicate very well. Teachers also are very good actually. So if you will find that kind of school, you can enjoy here actually. But if you face difficulties, like your son, you want to send to your son or your kids to school, the Korean school, and they are not enjoying, they are feeling alone, or they are not talking to someone.
Yeah.
And this is difficult situation actually.
So that's life
Like
basically. So.
my son, he's enjoying every time actually.
Yes, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, Professor, thank you very much for your time. We have been talking for half an hour now. So I wanted to know, do you have any specific points you would like to talk about, or otherwise we can just wrap it up?
Yeah, I think I have done like PBC fellowship. I already mentioned again.
Right. You mentioned,
fellowship.
yes,
That's very interesting actually. So people can apply if they want.
Sure.
Actually, this is the main point. And yeah, that's it. And thank you very much for this opportunity. Actually,
thank you for giving us the time. And right, so if
yeah,
so I'd like to.
Actually, I'm not sure about my university policy about the education. So because
Sure,
I'm teaching, I told you that I'm teaching the foundation of the neuromorphic electronics. So next semester. So if they allow, actually, I'm not sure they will allow or not. Actually, so if they allow, actually, I can apply the link to the students.
Oh yeah, that
would
be good. Yeah.
So I'm not sure till now. I'm not sure about the policy. So I will talk to my department if they will allow. Students from outside can also join. Actually,
sure.
Because it's a new kind of course actually.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Like I think because your research area is so interesting, many people will be interested to learn something about that. Anyway, so let's stay in touch, and later on down the line, maybe I can get you again on the podcast to talk about something else. Yes. Anyway, so thank you very much for your time, Professor, and have a nice day. Yeah.
You too. Okay.
Yeah. Take
care. Bye.